Hello and welcome back to Remake Hot Take, the podcast where we play studio executives pitching remake ideas of our favorite and new media. I'm Marriya Schwarz.
And I'm Brooke Rees, and this week we are doing the Oscar winning, not for Best Picture, but for a bunch of other things, Oscar winning movie Poor Things,
Mhm.
starring Emma Stone. And how do you pronounce the director's name? It's like Yorgos.
I'll let you take it.
Okay. I didn't watch the Oscars where I'm sure they pronounced his name like a bunch of times, but Yorgos Lanthimos.
He also did
Lanthimos?
The Favorite. I think
Hmm.
it's like the same setup as The Favorite with Emma Stone and Tony McNamara. I'll take that one.
Yeah, which I've seen The Favorite too, and I did like that one. But yeah, we thought we would cover Oscars were last weekend. We thought we would
Mhm.
cover a recent movie that had a lot of Oscar buzz and a lot of nominations and wins.
Brooke
Um,
doesn't like to watch the Oscars.
I don't like to watch it's very anxiety inducing for me. Like I like the concept of it. Like if I I
I
like
like the concept of awards.
yeah, I think that people should get recognized for their work. I think like in theory, like very fun. Like I do like seeing like I like seeing the red carpet pics after the fact, and I do like seeing like clips of people's speeches and everything. But it's something within me, like once my like just generalized anxiety disorder is like cleared up a bit, then I think I could partake. But stuff like that where they're like waiting to see who's gonna win. And then in particular, like I cannot stand when people get like talked off or like walked off the stage, like the music starts playing and they cut their mic and everything if their speeches are too long. That gives me immense amount of anxiety. So yeah, I stopped watching it like 10 or 15 years ago. I watched it as a kid with my parents. But yeah, I like the whole buzz. Like if I like got invited, I would go for sure. But
Is that a wink wink hint hint?
yeah, if the podcast gets nominated
I
next
think we're
year.
more likely to be seat fillers. I don't think we're gonna get on the glam bot.
I think if we're nice to that guy that does them, we can get on it. But
I don't totally trust my confidence in finding a camera.
no, I feel like I don't even really look good in like just candid shots. I don't think I would look good for something where you have to like highly like pose, and even celebrities that are like gorgeous kind of look like idiots sometimes when they don't like get the pose right. It's like you have to do like a big movement followed by like a small movement or something. So the whole affair is very anxiety inducing for me. But all that being said, Emma Stone won, right? For Best
Mhm.
Actress for Poor Things. Yeah, which people were saying, I think the only buzz that I saw was like, yeah, everyone like pretty much loves Emma Stone, but I think a lot of people were rooting for Lily Gladstone's portrayal
Yeah.
in Killers of the Flower Moon. So I think that was kind of what people were let down by.
I think
But
Emma Stone was let down by it.
yeah, I think you could tell that she was like rooting for Lily or for someone else, and she
Or even
seemed
just afraid of the buzz afterwards, because I think there was so much hate, especially for Jamie Lee Curtis last year.
yeah.
So I would assume that you don't really want to go through that again. But
Yeah, I think there's like a general trend that I've noticed. Again, not having watched the Oscars, but having like heard about it on Twitter afterwards or seen clips on TikTok. I think there's like a general trend of people being kind of like anti-Oscars for their like lack of diverse like winners. And it seems that they're kind of into a pattern of where like the person is winning probably not for the movie that they're actually being nominated for, but more so like their body of work that they've done.
I can
um
assure you that Brendan Fraser did not win for his body of work after watching 71 out of 76 of his filmography. I can assure you they weren't like, oh man, Monkey Bone was snubbed.
they're like,
We
we gotta
gotta
get
make
him
up for it
in.
this year.
Yeah, that's what I've seen some people say. And but all that being said, like I feel like Emma Stone did like a fabulous job in this
Hmm.
film. I really loved her. I think she was like the glue that was holding all of this, like all of the just weird plot that was going
Yeah.
on and like the eccentric vibe. I think she like held this film together and like gave it a real
But
like
I
heart and
think
soul.
it's often like it's the people who play like a character who's has some kind of like mental illness or like some kind of eccentricities so that like they
Hmm.
have something to do. I think it's a lot rarer for like someone to win just for like being a person, you know? Like I
Yeah.
think like, the Tom Hanks for Forrest Gump and all of these people who have played like even just like extreme like body changes and stuff like that. I feel like those are the ones where it's like you have to see like the work behind it
Hmm.
because it's such like a strong departure from who they actually are versus like the people who are just like playing everyday human beings with who are alive and have been alive this whole time, and did not jump to their death and was reanimated. Um, so um, so I think she had like also like a lot to play with than maybe the other contenders. But again, I had no stakes in it. I did not watch it. So
Yeah. And how come you didn't watch it this year? Because in past years you did like a March Madness like bracket style of who you thought was gonna win. It just did you not like any of the films this year?
oh, I just have depression.
Okay.
Um,
All right, so
it's
we can check off no longer interested in things that they used
yeah,
to be.
yeah.
Hmm. All right. Well, you'll get back in there, Mari.
Thank you.
Oscars 2025 is going to be your year to play in the bracket.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the film then if we had no other
Hmm.
general Oscars comments. Marriya, what were your overall impressions of this movie?
Um, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it.
Okay.
I was unsettled by it at times, and I think I was supposed to.
Hmm.
Um, so yay.
So good
I
on
don't know.
them.
I don't know. Sometimes I think it was really heavy-handed with the message, and sometimes it felt like the characters were saying lines. Like it felt like more like of a play that was like speaking from Tony McNamara's mind than like characters. Um, Visually really nice. Maybe a smidge too much nudity. Um, I think I don't know. I got into a whole kind of moral thing where I'm like, is female nudity empowering on screen, or not? And I
Hmm.
think it's also hard because I'm like, yay, Bella, but also she has a baby's mind, and can she really consent at that age? Like legally, no, but they live in England. I don't know. Um, and it's in the past. I don't know what the laws were. Um, and so it kind of felt like I think female nudity can be empowering of like, yay, normalizing female bodies, normalizing body hair, but in sometimes it can be like for shock value. Which I feel like this one leaned a little bit more towards shock value, which I think is like something similar to like Game of Thrones, which has a lot of female nudity, not to like advance the plot or to give any character sexual agency, but for that shock value.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay, if we're showing so much female nudity, we should be showing like a penis. And yes, we get that skinny French man's penis, but we were robbed of any Mark Ruffalo penis, and maybe that was a misstep. But I don't know. I kept on going back and forth on whether it was like empowering or because I feel like some of the story is also like she has a child's mind, and yes, not everyone knows that she has a child's mind, but they're still taking advantage of her. And by showing her body so openly, are we also taking advantage of her? Or I don't know. I don't know. So overall, my opinion, I don't know.
Okay.
What about you, Brooke?
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of great points. I think that's like definitely what I see a lot of people on like Letterboxd and Twitter and just like general discourse about this film is centering around like, is this the most misogynistic film ever made ever, or is it like a feminist masterpiece? And it's definitely like I will say it's definitely a film that is like entangled in all of those concepts, like you said. I think that ultimately they do succeed in not being a film that is misogynistic and not being a film that is just like inherently pandering towards like the male gaze. And this was like definitely a film that I watched it and in like the first like 3 minutes, I was like, oh God. I was like, I gotta mentally prepare myself. Like this was not like a turn it on and like half pay attention kind of movie. It was like I turned it on for 3 minutes and then I was like, nope, I gotta come back to it later. Like when I can sit down and just like devote all my time to watching it. And I think it's definitely one that they'll like show in film classes. And it definitely seemed like a movie that was
I would hate being in that film class and watching all those sex scenes. Like, because my parents were like, maybe we should all watch it together. And I was like, I would sooner take a gun. Um,
I would kill myself in front of you. No, I mean, it's definitely something that reminds me of like a lot of other very highly stylized films that I have like seen for my film degree and definitely referencing a lot of like silent movie motifs with like the different like apertures that they were using to create that like silent movie vignette, and we were like looking through kind of like a porthole at times, and then the switching from like black and white to the color is something that a couple movies this year have done with like Asteroid City and Oppenheimer. I thought this was probably like my favorite like depiction of the black and white to color. And when they used the color, it was like this just fantastical like color palette with these. I was reading that they made like man-made a lot of the sets, like it was a lot of kind of older movie techniques, and you could definitely tell like it looked like super like almost uncanny, like these looked like kind of like real places, but then there'd be like a floating like spaceship or something and you were
mhm.
like, oh, we're not in like the same timeline or same universe as like we're living in. But yeah, so all that being said, I have settled on the side of the male gaze is something that is like a filmic psychoanalytic like concept that was like popularized and kind of reimagined by like a film theorist. I think her name was like Laura Mulvey or something. And we read a lot about it as like film majors. It was basically like a lens that you can use to interpret different film, and the male gaze is talking about, like you said, like is it using female bodies, viewing them as objects, and like the camera becomes like an object of the male gaze, and then the spectators who watch the film can also be objects of that male gaze. But I think that you're having like a much more like intelligent grasping of like what all those things are. And I feel like the issue that I have is that like people on Twitter are just watching it and being like, that's misogynistic. Like they're being like very like reductive in their analysis of the film. And they say like basically like the keywords that they use are like, she can't consent and she's like a toddler and this is disgusting and I couldn't even watch the film. And I'm like, oh man, like you missed out on like a lot of really important like things that the film was trying to show if that's like the biggest holdup. So I personally think that it gets away with it. There is like the issue of like this is a male director doing this, and like you said, we don't see kind of the same level of intensity of nudity from her male counterparts. But I really liked what it ended up doing. And, she says that, first of all, we're in like a fantastical world where it's even possible to do a surgery where, she can put the mind of like an unborn child, he can put the mind of an unborn child into a recently deceased woman's head. And
Wait, on that, I was like, are we pro-life? Is this a pro-life movie?
yeah, I very, very weird. And I thought like the much more important thing about that whole thing was like these themes of like the mad scientist name is like Godwin Baxter, and people often call him God. And I was like, I'm much more interested in the idea of like, someone not consenting to being reborn. So
Mhm.
she's both mother and child. And, sometimes people say like, I wish I was never born, or like I wish I wasn't alive. And it's interesting to me that she had that kind of like part of her consent taken away. Like she's no longer her mother, but she kind of is in like her mother's body. And we
Mhm.
don't know how much of the infant's brain is also the mother's. And,
Well, I
she
feel
very,
like we have more of that conversation, like when she finds out about what
yeah.
happened, but we don't really have the conversation about like, is she able to consent
hmm
with
I
a child's mind? So maybe that is the issue. I'm not sure.
Well, see, I was thinking that, they show that she had, like, they call it, like, in their scientific experiment, that she had, like, rapid acceleration of, like, growth, both in, like, language cognitive abilities and in, like, her hair and, like, other, like,
No.
physical features. So, like, if I'm gonna guess, I don't think she's actually, like, a child for, like,
Hmm.
the majority of the film. Clearly, she's not, because she is able to have like full complete sentences and then starts reading like, metaphysical theories and stuff like that. So, and that's what Emma Stone said too. She said that like, some of those earlier sexual scenes, she did see more of like her portraying like someone that is like younger, childlike, into like sort of a sexual like coming of age. But that those later more sexually explicit scenes, and especially when she becomes like a prostitute in Paris, she saw that as being like no longer like a child. She's more so like a woman that has never had to grow up with like the societal norms that women in this like fantasy world and fantasy time period would never be considered like proper or whatever. So yeah, I think that this is just like such a rich movie, like rich in terms of like plot and theme and like all of these different theories that people are wrestling with. But then also you said, you loved like the cinematography and everything. It's also just amazingly well done with the cinematography and the set design and the production design and the editing. Like it's really good. I feel like it deserved its wins. But yeah, so I really liked it. It took me like 20 minutes to get into it, and then I was fully enveloped in this weird fantasy world that they had created. But yeah, did we want to talk about any like specific scenes or lines or like characters that we really liked or
Sure.
disliked? Mark Ruffalo's character was really interesting. Like if we're talking about like theories of the male gaze and is this a feminist film or not, like I know that people are kind of comparing it to like he is this like absolute like overhyped version of like what it is to be in the patriarchy. But then other people are saying like this at its essence is what a man is who is
Mhm.
struggling with concepts of like what he should be in a relationship. He should be the dominant one. He should be the one that like has the money and, you know, controls his woman and goes so far as kidnapping her. His acting style was very interesting. um
It's movies like these that make me feel like Mark Ruffalo is not a good actor. And it's like it makes me so upset because I know he is. And like
mhm
I always think about that one scene of in Spotlight where he's like, we got him, we have to go to press, like these are kids. He took advantage of kids, and like there's that big moment. Um, like they knew and they did nothing about it. Like I love that. I
mhm
think the issue for me, because we had this conversation when I talked a little bit about what's it? All the things we cannot see, all the light we cannot see.
mhm
Um, I just think Mark Ruffalo can't do an accent. He
he
absolutely cannot do
can't.
an accent. And
No.
I think it's either that he gets so caught up in doing the accent that he, like, the rest of his performance is just awful, or it's just like the accent isn't good either. So I think I stop putting him in accent movies. Like, I
Hmm.
really don't understand it because he is a good actor and he's great. And so I'm like, but stuff like this where I'm like, was Spotlight even him or like a twin?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that he is a great actor, and I think like the whimsical, like eccentric nature of this film lets him get away with that performance a little bit. And, because he's such a good actor and because he have like, this well-established body of work, I feel like it's like a choice that he's making. I don't know if I want to give him too much credit,
My choice is that
but
I'm bad at accent.
no, it's like if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that that was an intentional stylistic choice, it just missed the mark for me compared to
The
Emma
Mark Ruffalo, I
Stone's.
missed the Mark Ruffalo for
It
you.
missed the Mark Ruffalo for me, and Emma Stone in comparison as these two leads just like he paled in comparison to her.
I also
And
thought he was going to be in it more.
I
I don't
did
know why
too.
I had that opinion, but that thought, but
Yeah, I don't know. Just something about it didn't quite it didn't like, take me out of the movie or anything. And I thought he was still being, right in line with the overall themes. It just was like weird and he just seemed just not as good compared to Emma. And
yeah.
we're supposed to like dislike this character, right? He's supposed to be this just pathetic portrayal of a man who seems kind of like suave at first and he's like a lawyer that like he's the ultimate depiction of a man that immediately takes advantage of this woman. And like you said, they are like at times very heavy-handed with like the meaning that they're trying to convey. They're like, we're gonna hand this to you on this like a silver plate here. He is a bad man and like we agree with you that she is like a child in a child's body. And Mark Ruffalo's character very much like likes her because she cannot like verbally communicate because
But
she,
like he doesn't know that she's a child. Like I didn't love the
yeah.
whole like I love you, Bella, because you're not like other girls. It was like Bella became the first, I don't know when this is technically set in this like alternate universe, but is Bella our first manic pixie dream girl?
No, I think she is, but less so manic pixie. But I think it's important that he like is too stupid to realize that she is like an infant brain in a woman's body. I think it's
Mhm.
more so a depiction of like for him that like this is the ultimate like female ideal for a man in the patriarchy is a woman who is a sex machine and has the mental capacity of a 2-year-old
Yeah.
because the
Men
men
really like baby women. And I
they
think that was also
do.
part of it is like showing that like even though he's literally with someone who has a baby's mind, he was more of a baby with like
Hmm.
throwing temper tantrums and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we definitely see her like he Duncan, that's his name, right? I think that's the character's name. Duncan's character was like an unnecessary or like unfortunately a necessary part of her transition from like infanthood into this like rapid acceleration into womanhood and adulthood.
Mhm.
And we see how far like they start out kind of like honestly at the same kind of mental age, like you said, like she has an excuse for why she's acting with this way, but he is just like infantilized and is throwing temper tantrums when he doesn't get what he wants and wants her full undivided attention. And as soon as she like reads for the first time, she picks up a book and she talks to like another woman on the cruise ship after
She
she's
watches
been
Barbie once.
she watches the Barbie movie and you could see how far they like split apart there with his mental age
Mhm.
and he becomes even more pathetic and then like can't find a way off the boat, can't find a way out of Paris and she like, moves on with her life and leaves him in the dust. And she moves on to socialism, which is another funny turn that this movie takes. Um but yeah, what about you? Any other specific characters that jumped out or scenes?
Well, I did want to mention, I was like, I don't know, what is with the Frankenstein adaptations this
Yeah.
year? Like we have Lisa Frankenstein, we have this movie. Like, is something in public domain? Like what's going on with that? So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought that this was an interesting take on it. Like it was kind of like Frankenstein's daughter, kind of, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that the doctor guy, I wish we could get him into therapy. I don't know what his health insurance is like, but it's like he's like, I understand why my father removed all my gastric acid. And it's like I understand why he did all this. And it's like just like maybe CBT, and like identifying some of these little things. We can get you a workbook or something
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yeah, I think Godwin Baxter has like complex PTSD,
Yeah.
honestly. But yeah, he is well, yeah, first, I don't know what it is with the Frankenstein adaptations, but I saw both Lisa Frankenstein and this movie, and I did really like both. And like kind of similar vibes, honestly. Like they're taking Frankenstein and making it like extremely eccentric and definitely
Hmm.
for a modern audience. But yeah, Godwin Baxter is like another just super interesting character. And, we, like we said before, with like, people call him God. He has this like God complex that is so dangerous for someone to have, like, especially in like the medical field, whatever kind of medical professional he is. He's like a walking like HIPAA violation. And like whatever the like doctor, they have like some sort of like doctoral code where they're like, do no harm ever. And he is just like an ethics committee, like worst nightmare. But yeah, like we said earlier, there's that whole theme of him being like the face of God and what it means to be in complete control of someone. And he has the power to make these like creatures a la like Spy Kids 2,
Hmm.
where they have these like weird, combinations. But, are these people suffering, and is Bella suffering? But like you said, his father before him, kind of made him as the Frankenstein, and then he's repeating that abusive pattern. But the biggest distinction is that, he says time and time again that his father did not see him as a son, as a family member. Like there was absolutely no love there. And I guess the only way that he is breaking that cycle is that even though he tries to deny it and says that Bella is just a science experiment, like he does care for her,
Hmm.
which doesn't make anything that he's done less wrong. And, the film.
And then it was also weird of like, it's not that I don't want to have sex with Bella, it's that I can't. And I thought that was weird. I don't know. The whole like Bella's the most beautiful woman in the world. It's like she's just boobs and eyebrows. Like that's like you've never seen Emma Stone so boobed and so eyebrowed before.
So boobed and browed up. Yeah, but I feel like that's like why it hints at, these elements where it is like undercutting like the patriarchy, because I feel like that's like a jab at the patriarchy, saying like men, are can only view a woman in two ways, and it's their relationship to her. And it's either they are like a father figure and want to protect her, or they want to fuck her. And
Mhm.
like he has this like ultimate control over Bella and created her, but the only reason that he doesn't want to fuck her is because he's like physically unable to. But yeah, and the film's doing a lot of like interesting things. I think you could argue it like one way or the other if the film is trying to like humanize him, and like I said, having him break that cycle, having him show genuine love to Bella. But on the same like side, I think you could also say that there is no such thing as genuine love for someone who has like done that to another person. And I think she like is also tasked with like wrestling with those complicated feelings and that complicated morality that he presents. And you see her like running away from that life and, telling him that she needs to go off on her own, and then only returning when he's like close to death's door, and then kind of like promptly leaving again to go check out her like previous husband and see if that like life is
Mhm.
better than this one. But I think she does forgive him. I think that she knows that
Mhm.
what he did was wrong. she knows that he like stole her mother's choice to kill herself, but I think she is like grateful in a sense that she is the infant brain was given an opportunity to live.
Yeah. Was Margaret Qualley, was she the same exact thing?
Yeah.
Was she a baby? Was like how many pregnant mothers are killing themselves that it's this easy? Because he mentioned in the first when he was talking to like that student, her fiance or whatever, he was like, I got lucky that she just happened to appear. And then
Mhm.
he was like, I found another one. Also, I don't know, Margaret Qualley jump scare. I didn't realize that she was in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't either. Which is like another thing about, oh, has he changed his ways? Does he view them, not as experiments, but as, real people? And I think that's a point on the side of like, no, he has not changed his ways. He turned around, did not learn his lesson. And, the fiance, his like protege is like, oh, well, we only, ruined this woman's life, and made like another one because we really missed you. And like
Hmm.
kind of hinting at like the interchangeability of these women. But yeah, Margaret Qualley stars as Felicity, who unfortunately seems even more like stuck in this infant stage and is not progressing as quickly as Emma was. Um, so yeah, that's not good. Um, yeah, let's see. Any other thoughts? There's
Um,
so much to talk about with this movie.
I hated the music. I hated the screeching. I kept on like having, and I think maybe this is also like, maybe this isn't a movie like for streaming services on my laptop. Like I just kept on having to like change up and down the volume.
Yeah.
I knew it was supposed to make me feel unsettled, but it was just like so much and so screechy with the violin. It was so obnoxious. And I think Hulu was maybe not the way that they intended me viewing this film. Like it was like that hairy guy was like, Bella, do you want to see what the world is really like? And she's like, yes. And then it was like a Burger King ad.
I also had that experience with my Hulu ads, but I always get like a CVS ad and
Oh,
it's
I've
this
never gotten CVS. They're
oh
like,
my
you don't need to
gosh.
be healthy just to
No,
eat a burger.
mine is like you need to pick up your like prescriptions and it's a CVS song that like it's literally like an ad that is like a song. It's like a little jingle. So it goes like Barbara is the one that fills your meds and she is the one that hands you a band-aid. Like it's this little like jingle.
I
And
mainly get dating apps for other people.
no,
Like I've gotten the black only dating app. I get that ad quite frequently, and I get the single parents dating app.
oh my gosh. That's no, I get CVS and I get like car ads, but
I get the drive time dealership.
yeah, I
I
get
get to
that.
change my plan. Grandma, they did it. Drive time really did it.
But yeah, the score for this film, deeply unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not my style. There's nothing that I hate more than um what is it, like a like synthesized music, like the music that's in like Stranger Things and Blade Runner. That
Mm-hmm.
one really puts me on edge. So these like choppy like violins or whatever aren't as like aggravating for me. But it's funny because my roommate who like literally Googles like haunted house, Halloween soundtrack, and that's what she like falls asleep to every night. She's very spooky. She would like do well in the Addams Family. She like had just gotten back from a trip, so she like fell asleep when we were watching this like 20 minutes in. But she was like, "Oh, that was so nice. I loved like listening to the soundtrack the whole time she was taking a nap." And I was like, "Oh man, we are different people." Because that is not what would make me feel nice and cozy. But yeah, so the soundtrack was interesting. Again, just a shout out to the like production design. I love movies with amazing production design. Like for a while, like if I ever did get into the film industry, I think that's what I would love to do is like production, set design, everything like that.
Oscars
And
2025.
Wow, my entry level year. I want to be at the Oscars. Um, but I just thought that they did an amazing job, and it was really interesting the decision to shoot in black and white, like within the house. I can't remember. Do they eventually show like the interior of the house in color?
I can't
Once,
remember. That's what I was confused about. I remembered
yeah.
like it was just when I was pulling up the virtual background, I was like, oh yeah, the movie's in color. But I remember starting out as black and white, but I can't remember when we had that big change. I don't think it was, like that moment in Wizard of Oz, which is
Mhm.
not a good comparison to this film,
No, it
where
is
it's
a
like you
good
enter
comparison.
Oz and suddenly we have that like actual like break.
Mhm.
I think it was more fluent in this one
Yeah, no, I
where,
actually
yeah.
think it is a good comparison because I actually get like Wizard of Oz vibes with like the
Dorothy fucked.
Dorothy was riding the Tin Man. It sounded like an auto body shop when they were on top of each
Well, she
other.
provides the oil.
No extra lubrication needed. No, no, no. I
There
thought
has to
it,
be a porn version of Wizard of Oz. Like,
I'm
this isn't
sure.
something we just created.
I'm sure. I mean, I think you can get like a sexy, slutty Dorothy Halloween costume. So I'm sure people have, put that costume to good use on the big screen. By big
I
screen,
don't think it's a big screen.
by big screen, I mean like their camcorder in their hotel room. But no, I think it is like a pretty good comparison because I feel like Wizard of Oz does do very similar like fantastical set design with these like weird vibes. And another, like you said, transition from black and white to color. But yeah, I was reading up on like the production design, and they had like all of these like rich like blue and white like china like plates in the room when he's sitting at the dining table quite frequently. And I guess there was like a lot of contrast with like the wardrobe and everything too. And I guess they made like a last minute decision to shoot in black and white, for some of those scenes and then transition over. But yeah, the creation of this like mad scientist home
Mhm.
is really intriguing. And then again with the set design of this like fake Lisbon where it has some elements that are true, but then these like fantastical elements woven in.
Yeah, especially
Um,
because we don't go into them. Like, we don't ever talk about
yeah.
why we're like flying through or taxis are on like a tightrope or whatever.
Hmm.
And like all the actual like animal creations that are like around the scientist's house, we don't really go through why anything of those there. So in that way, I think it is like a little bit more like empowering, or because it is Bella's story, like it's not really
Hmm.
about like the setting, it's not about the scientist, it's about like her path forward.
Hmm.
And we don't, I mean, we have hints that there are other parts of the story, but we don't follow those lines at all.
Yeah. And that's another good point because I think I read something where someone pointed out, a lot of this is from like Bella's point of view. So like are we seeing these fantastical elements woven in like as a child would see them, like
Mm.
childlike wonder? But I don't think it so much points to that since we do come back to the house later when she is kind of like a full adult, it seems. And nothing has really changed in the way that we see that world. But yeah, I think I want to touch really quick on like what you think about her kind of like world tour journey where she gets like then kidnapped, taken on this cruise, and then has a couple of incidents where she kind of like realizes that poor people exist for the first time. It's like if, like Paris Hilton like found out that somebody like doesn't have money to eat, like she has a real like come to Jesus moment. And then of course like the other big like controversial scenes are where she is in Paris and then becomes like a prostitute to like earn money. And we think it's like a temporary solution, but it seems like she stays there for like quite a bit of time and kind of like makes her own
Mhm.
life there, has her like girlfriend there, becomes a socialist. So Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like that whole aspect of the movie. And then again with like this final scene, her decision to kind of go back even for just a little bit of time to this husband that she doesn't remember, but is willing to go and like check it out and then like ultimately ends up killing him in a way. So yeah,
Yeah.
what did you think about those parts?
I think a lot of like the side quests were really heavy-handed
Hmm.
and were really like, if you don't understand the main theme, we're gonna spell it out for you. Um, like we can't just trust that the audience will understand that Bella is reading philosophy and expanding her vocabulary versus like the from the beginning of the film. We have to like take her to see poor people and see people almost die, for us to like understand that she is also evolving morally. And I think that whole character of Harry, I don't know if it was the actor or if it was the writing, but it felt so much that he was just saying the lines of what Tony McNamara thought.
Hmm.
And to the point where like I was so done with this guy, and I was like, thank fucking God we're being thrown off this boat because I don't even want to spend any more time with him.
Hmm.
Um, and then like when she goes back with the ex-husband or whatever, um, or I guess current, I don't know how you would look at it, but whatever, or dad, I don't know how you want to see it, but um it was like, okay, if you didn't understand the theme that like Bella is exploring her sexual freedom and no one can chain her down, we're going to physically have a moment where they're going to try to take away her sexual organs. And I think
Hmm.
in that regard, it felt like they were kind of babying the viewer, that they weren't going to get like the subtle kind of themes. And they were like, well, let's just actually just go all in. And it kind of felt a little bit corny to me, or just like not trusting, or just like, would these things actually happen in this order? Like, oh, right, we're already thinking about like the Bella as like a sexual being, but of course now she's going to have her sexual organs and ability taken away. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little bit too much at all of those different points. And
Hmm.
you could feel like it felt too much because it felt like all of those things that people were saying were just like lines and ideology versus like something that anyone would actually say.
Hmm.
But what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree, like basically on everything for the most part. I think the only thing that I see is that apparently the audiences did need like very heavy-handed, like, like portrayals of the overall themes because, like I said, I was flabbergasted when people who actually watched this movie only came away like their only thing was like, this is about a child not being able to consent. Like that's their only takeaway.
Well, I
And
think that was like the shock value part of it. So I think it's
yeah.
sometimes when it's like, I don't know, because I think it's supposed to be unsettling.
Hmm.
And so I think that's supposed to be like the thing that grips you, and then like you stay for the rest of the theme. But if you're like so deeply unsettled by that premise, I think it's maybe difficult to move past further than that. So I'm not sure if those people didn't fully understand the message, or if they were just
Hmm.
like, that's a lot. Because I was definitely having moral debates, and I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I think I don't know. I felt like the ending wasn't too heavy-handed, and I think that if anything, I think I liked it more to show contrast between the two sides that she could have chosen. I think I
Hmm.
liked it more as this like full understanding and opportunity to have like some forgiveness towards Godwin and towards her fiance is just like this like mild mannered complicit in her initial like kidnapping but then becomes like like a boy written by a woman kind of vibes where he's like he's like I don't care that you are a prostitute. I just wish I had as much time with you as those men did. So he's just kind of like this sweet side character. So the only thing that I liked about the ending was I did like that it provided that like stark contrast between like the life that she was living and this new like path that she's forged for herself, and kind of making her character a bit more complex in the sense that she, actively chooses to like kind of make her own path. And then, Godwin Baxter like passes away, and she kind of has that as an opportunity for her to explore like a surgeon doctor like career. So I didn't hate the ending as much, but yeah, the cruise scenes were weird. And you're right, I did
Mhm.
not like the performance from Harry. I thought the like older woman was okay. She didn't have as
Mhm.
much lines though. Hers was more so like I was picturing like on the Titanic, and like like Rose played by Kate Winslet, and then there's like the larger like new money kind of lady that like tells it like it is. And I was like, oh, it's kind of like that, like this older, wiser woman that's gonna like show her the ropes. But yeah, Harry's character was so strange. Maybe I just like wasn't getting like the subtleties and the subtle irony behind it. But yeah, I did not love that
I
actor's
just felt like he
performance.
he should have come with a PowerPoint. I don't know. That was like the vibe. I was like, this is just to tell me what to think versus,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was so clearly like it honestly felt like an additional character that was written in afterwards.
Hmm.
And I feel like that
It felt like
entire
it was like the studio add-in.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe not so much studio, but it's like they kind of realized that they needed to like flesh out her like transition into adulthood a little bit more, and they needed to give her that like that person to kind of bounce off of. So, they had Bella being this like not so much like an unfailing optimist and naive, more so like innocence and, like we said before, like not adhering to societal norms. She's
Mhm.
not bashful. She's
But then she
confident in her
keeps that
sexuality.
innocence because she gives random people money without understanding where it's going.
Yeah,
So I'm
she
like,
does.
what did we get out of this?
Yeah, and I think they just had Harry as this like point for her to play off of. But yeah, he literally was like reading off of like it felt like he was like delivering lines, or like literally like opened up like a cynic manifesto and was like, life is pain, Bella. Why don't you get that? And she was like, actually, life is beautiful and life is about pain. And he was like,
I know
well, I'm
Tumblr would eat
glad.
this up though.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he's like horrible, and I'm sure he's a fine actor, but again, just didn't love the choice there for what they did. So yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know, at times like it felt like almost like creepy with the like big like dominating like towers and like scenes. Like it kind of was giving like Metropolis vibes,
Hmm.
which is like a very famous like German expressionist like silent film that they like force film majors to watch. So yeah, it definitely was referencing a lot of these like older movies and older film techniques. But for me too, the cruise scene fell a little flat. I think
Hmm.
they could have just shortened it and like just cut out some of those scenes. But yeah, any final thoughts before we move into remakes?
The one thing that I wanted to just briefly talk about is, I don't know, did you feel like this was a comedy? Like I felt like they randomly threw in like comedic one-liners in a way that like didn't really, it felt like jarring. Like it was like a screech violin. It was like an extra screech violin. Like the and it wasn't good comedy. Like the the doctor saying like I took all this heroin to be here and cocaine because I'm
Mhm.
impartial to cocaine, which I'm so tired of cocaine jokes. Like at that point, like SNL is always doing like, what's my favorite food? Cocaine. And it's just like I'm so tired of that being like a punchline. And there were just like so many like random little one-liners like that just like were thrown in and made me more uncomfortable because it felt like it felt like every so often Tony McNamara had a post-it note on his desk that was like, remember, this is a comedy. He was like, gotta add one in. I don't know. It felt very weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know what else I would classify it as though. I mean, I guess I would just do like fantasy. if I had to pick
Just a
it.
movie.
If I had to categorize it, I do think that it is a comedy, but it's not a comedy that I gravitate to or find funny. Like
Hmm.
I think there are people who find like Mark Ruffalo's like
Yeah.
portrayal, like they think that that's like
Well,
high
I think,
comedy.
well, I think that's like it was mostly like subtly comedic, but then he was like gotta be like Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids every so often, which just like made I don't know, it threw off that like subtlety of like more less of like comedic via experience and comedic via the plot line and like the comparison and the contradictions and stuff, and more like one-liners. And
Hmm.
I don't know, and there were a lot of comedians in this movie, like the fiance guy and Harry. So I was like, were they just throwing shit in? I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see too much of a problem with it, but I liked the cocaine joke. But I don't watch SNL, so I'm not burned out on the cocaine jokes, so we should see. But oh yeah, any last thoughts on like the prostitution Paris kind of section of the film? It was like broken up into those different sections, and that was like one of the biggest ones toward the end. Do you think that, I mean, like lots of hard questions here with like, is sex work empowering or can sex work like only ever be like demeaning and exploitative like to the woman? I think that's what it was trying to tackle. And I'm
Mhm.
not sure. I think they're definitely trying to make the case that Bella is, well, actually, I think they're kind of saying that she is both like empowered in this sense, but also feels very much like she's kind of like trapped here. And
Mhm.
I think the way that they
But
kind
then
of
she
were,
leaves so easily.
yeah, then she leaves and you know, I don't know, it's hard. I can't quite tease out what they were trying to say. I know that they're trying to say that you know, well, Bella really likes sex. So, you know, this is like an opportunity for her. She said multiple times that she wants to have sex with more men, and you know, this is her opportunity to do so, and she doesn't seem to have any problem. And we don't seem to see like really any dark side to it. The only like physical interactions that she doesn't love that are forced on her, like she wishes that she had a choice with who she had to sleep with. And then she
And the
also like,
earlobe.
yeah, and then she does not like the mistress pimp lady who like without consent like bites her. So I don't know if they,
Which was like the smallest moment of women can be bad too.
women can be perverts. So yeah, I honestly I don't know if they had like the wherewithal to tackle like as much.
We needed Harry with the Prezi to explain our standing.
We needed him to come on in, but you know, it's something that like I personally just have like complex feelings towards it, and it's like a huge debate that like, you know, Harry and I have sat in on philosophy classes where they debate this exact thing. And you know, is being able to sell your body one of like the ultimate choices of like personal empowerment that you can have, and like should like the sale of organs be illegal? Should you be allowed to be a surrogate and like rent out your uterus even though there are complications? So I think it's something that like has so many like complex things that they didn't quite have the time, I think, to work through in a nuanced sense. So it seemed to me like
Mhm.
they very much took just kind of a comedic, we're going to very much like skim over the top of this and have this be like a hilarious way for her to both be kind of like undermined by the patriarchy, and we see her being like a toddler sex prostitute, and now but we're also going to make it funny and make it empowering and have it be like she really likes having sex. So you know, no hard feelings. And also there aren't like as many stakes there. Like she is trapped kind of, you know, her boyfriend Duncan, or not even boyfriend, like her kind of lover Duncan has, you know, spent all his money on gambling, and she is the one that is like stepping up and finding a solution for herself. But like you said, the stakes aren't really there because as soon as she finds out that Godwin is sick, she's able to like hop on a train back to London. And she has means, and she has
Mhm.
like wealth from Godwin and from her
And
other.
then that other lady leaves too. So I'm like, what were we doing?
Yeah, and then her other lady. So yeah, they don't like dive into any serious side of that. You know,
Mhm.
they don't make it that there's like never a moment where she has this like horrific, like sad moment where she like
Mhm.
realizes that all
She gets
these
to
things
tell
are sad.
jokes.
She gets to tell jokes. And I'm not saying that it's bad that the movie isn't doing that either which way. I think that's just like one section of the movie that I'm having a harder time like reckoning with, like if they're doing a good job or a bad job, and what their like message was by including that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've only watched it through once, so maybe upon a second rewatch, I'll like glean some more insights.
Yeah. To quote my earlier review, I don't know.
I don't know what's happening. Okay, well, was there any who's your daddy sets that you wanted to get to before we went into remakes?
No, because Margaret Qualley wasn't technically starring in it. So even though she is a Nepo baby, I don't think she fully counts for our conversations, even though I have been seeing like things about her recently, because she like had this whole interview where she was like, she got the question like, why did Margaret Qualley do um acting? And she was like, well, I tried being a dancer first, and then I just somehow stumbled on acting. And everyone was like, oh yeah, like your famous mom had no part in this. I don't
That's
know.
funny.
Nepo babies who don't admit they're Nepo babies.
Yeah,
But Brooke, do you have any remakes that you would like to go through?
I do. So my first one, we were talking about how Godwin Baxter is a surgeon who's very much like in a living nightmare from his father, like performing all these operations on him and using him as like a meat sack of an experiment. So, I do think he should get therapy, but in addition to this, I think we go like one step back in the past, and in this alternative universe, I think that Godwin Baxter's dad, if we handed him just one of those like operation games
No.
where you try to go in and you take a piece out and it like buzzes, if you hit the side, it buzzes and then you lose. I think someone slips that to him like in a stocking or something, like around Christmas time when he's 10 years old. And I think we avoid like any necessity of doing that on an actual human. He gets all of his little like energy out on removing the spleen and putting it back in of the little operation man. And then his kid is just left alone in peace. And we stop just,
Instead
experimenting
of
on people.
pieces.
Yes, instead of pieces, we just one solid mass. um, and yeah, I think we just get him into that game young, and then he fixates on it, and everyone's good. So that's one idea, and then um, the next one is that we're talking about this like prominent female character with like a couple of male sidekicks that has like kind of a case of amnesia, kind of like new. What if, we go through this whole journey, but instead of like ending up back in London, like we end up in like Russia, and we do realize that she is like the princess Anastasia. Which I watched that movie with Marriya for the first time like 6 months ago
This
or
is gonna
so.
kill Grandmama.
So grandmama, she's gonna be, she's gonna be thrown for a loop, but she is gonna be happy to have Anastasia back, even though it's maybe a toddler living in Anastasia's head. But yeah, there's another potential crossover. Um, and then again, we see Felicity at the end, and I just want a better life for her. But the two skills that we've seen that she can do are like basic, like 2-word sentences and like
What?
repeating back what people say to her. And then also the ability to catch a ball. She finally does it at the end. So I think we take Felicity's journey like another couple steps forward. And with those two skill sets combined, I think we make her like a professional football player.
Well, she can say foot and she can
she,
catch a ball.
she can say foot, she can say ball, she can catch it. And, unfortunately, in the football, professional football world, head injuries run rampant. And I don't think they're going to question like her lack of cognitive ability. And having the brain of like a toddler may even like be beneficial for like taking those blows, because I assume it's like much smaller in size. So there is room for that traumatic brain injury to swell. Because like the issue that adult humans have with brain injuries is that, the skull encases the brain, and it's a pretty tight fit there, and it's important to have a tight fit for most like accidents. But the second that you have a brain bleed, there's like no, or like a traumatic impact, there's no room for it to swell like our other like tissues do. So it leads to like extensive brain damage. But good old Margaret's got the like brain the size of like a little, I don't know, like tennis ball or something, so room to grow.
Mhm.
And she has a limited skill set, so I just want to see her flourish, probably move to the Americas, or pursue football in London would be soccer. So either one of those, I think that she will be just fantastic, and she's going to find her own, not through sexual liberation, but through the power and love of football. So yeah, those are my remakes. What about you, Marriya?
So I think the Poor Things title kind of relates to the fact that this is like a bunch of, I don't know, people in bad circumstance. So I thought that it could be called Bore Things, and it's just a bunch of things that are boring, and then it's just Oppenheimer.
You really hated
I
Oppenheimer.
really didn't like Oppenheimer. It's way too long, and there's so many backstories, and I mean, like, did it win for best editing? I can't remember.
I think it won for Best Picture.
But did it win for best editing?
I
Because
don't know.
nothing got edited. Like we didn't make any cuts.
They did cut back and forth between lines, but everything else stayed on the table.
The other thing is that I thought, Bella's reading a bunch of, philosophy and all that kind of stuff. But I think that Bella should be gifted the Care and Keeping of You book from American Girl. And I think that could possibly help with her development, of her body. Um, I mean, the book is very much about, I think, a changing body. So she's like kind of coming in with all of those like the accessories pre-installed, but um could still be helpful because I don't know if anyone is taught when I don't think they talk about it in the book. But maybe the B. I haven't read the second one. Okay. But like contraceptive or safe sex, which I don't think is in the American Girl world necessarily, but I mean they're in England, so maybe British Girl is more racy. Um, but I just think she needs some kind of information. I don't know. As a child, I wasn't really interested in shoving stuff into me. I don't know. So it's maybe some kind of education there because I think she likes reading. So reading about, I think she reads a lot about morals, but maybe just about like herself. Maybe the feminine mystique could be something she tackles. Um, and then I think the movie is kind of broken up, and in that case maybe it is has some kind of that misogynistic ideals of like the movie, and especially like all the title cards are basically broken up by like the different men that she follows in her life. And so I thought maybe we could add on one more. We don't want to get necessarily too like Oppenheimer length, but just like, it wouldn't be too bad to add in like 20 minutes where she sees this guy who is playing jazz piano. And she decides to follow him. She learns how to tap dance. She decides she's going to put on a one-act play. Um, she remembers all of these memories about her grandmother or something and going in Paris and in the Seine River or whatever. And I don't even know if I pronounced that right. Um, and we have the entire plot of La La Land, but more compressed to 20 minutes. We don't want to
Mhm.
get into Oppenheimer level, but just so that we can just add in another Ryan Gosling on the boards. I don't think he is yet a Tony McNamara collaborator, but he could be.
His potential.
And I don't think because we see what happens to Mark Ruffalo when we are putting on an accent that is not our own. So I don't even think we put that pressure on Ryan. He's just an
He's
American jazz
American.
pianist um, who's in this location. And I just think that could be an interesting because Bella likes to dance. So could be an option. She could be interested in all that good stuff, and she's never experienced jazz.
I
And
think she
Ryan
would like
Gosling
it.
created jazz, so
Yeah, I mean, jazz has like those like dissonance, right?
God, the fucking violin screech is gonna have so much fun.
It's just gonna be like piano dissonance. But
Well,
yeah,
they're like Ryan, I don't remember what his character Sebastian. They're like Sebastian has his solo and he's playing the piano, and then it's like, okay, violin solo, just screech, screech, screech for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Alrighty. Well, let's get into what we've been watching.
What have you been
Um,
watching, Brooke?
haven't been watching too much, but I did rewatch The Heat, with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock, 2013 comedy film, which I think is one of Melissa McCarthy's best movies. I
It's
You don't like it
okay.
that much?
Well, I think in the vibe of Black Lives Matter, it changes for me. Like a Boston cop that breaks every single rule that is there for the reason of helping keep the city safe and maintaining privacy.
Yeah, she's not a good cop. She's very much not good. Very dirty. But I do think it's funny, and I love Sandra Bullock playing off of her. So 2013 The Heat, and then I saw Sisters with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, 2015 comedy film. Had never seen it before, and I didn't like it that much. I gave it like 2.5 stars. I thought it just didn't like really, the comedy just didn't really hit for me. And the whole premise was like it's these two sisters who are very different, and they like go home to clean out their childhood bedrooms because their parents are selling their house. And they decide to like throw a wild party because Amy Poehler's character was like a goody goody in high school. And they just do like ultimate like property destruction. And like, of course, like it all works out in the end. But I just didn't think it was that funny. It just didn't really hit
Mm.
for me. And then the thing that I've most been watching, but that Letterboxd like won't let you track, is the fourth season of True Detective, which is really good. I hadn't seen any of the other True Detective seasons, but they're all like their own like little story. So this one was True Detective Night Country, and it was really interesting. It was Jodie Foster, who I really like Jodie Foster. I think we talked about before like Panic Room, where she and Kristen Stewart
Yeah.
play mother-daughter, and gosh, they just have like such similar mannerisms. Like Kristen, I feel like took like a lot of pointers from Jodie in terms of acting style. Um but gosh, this was so interesting. My mom like recommended it to me. She was like, I think you'd like it, Brooke. Like it's like spooky and like weird and like true crime. And I was like, okay. And it's like about Jodie Foster is this again like a bad cop. I guess I've been on like these like dirty cop movies about this like corrupt cop in Alaska, where apparently this is true to form because like I saw one of those like stupid like Instagram posts of like the US states with like different like attributes, like a map of different things, and who knows how accurate this data is. But I've heard this like just like before, that Alaska has like super high crime rates, and you would think that that's like not the case because it's so like unpopulated. But like the bush people, I think like Alaskan bush people, like it's like a hard tough country out there, with a lot of apparently lawlessness. And so yeah, it's about this like bad cop who goes out to this like research facility and finds that like all of the men have disappeared. And then like shortly after that, they find like all of the men out there frozen on the ice. And then I won't spoil anything, but they think that there are like these like mystical powers, and this woman who was murdered may have like come back from the dead and maybe like haunting and killing people.
Oh my gosh, very poor things.
Kind of. Definitely a different feminist interpretation. They did not go about it in terms of sexual liberation, but just like murdering men, which, to each their own. So yeah, it was really, really good. Like really, really good. Would definitely recommend. Um, and maybe I'll like look into other True Detective seasons, but I know that a lot of people said the first one with Matthew McConaughey was really good, and then this one was like their second favorite. But yeah, that's all I've been watching. What about you, Marriya?
So I tried to keep watching Elementary, but my Hulu is like, I don't know what's going on with it. Like there are certain shows that I can't watch anymore. Like it just gives me like an error code, so I can like only watch some TV series and movies. And but like there are a bunch of TV series where I can't finish it because it suddenly decides that it doesn't like that show anymore. And so Hulu, if you're listening, Mr. Hulu, I'm paying way too much money for me to not watch half of the thing. So I tried to finish Elementary, but I can't access it. So I'm like in the middle of one of the murders. So I don't even know. I don't even remember what I was on. So I just rewatched Dunkirk, which was a really random jump, just to prove that Christopher Nolan isn't bad, to myself. That was something I needed to remember. I didn't like Oppenheimer. I really didn't. And then I watched Extraordinary, the new season, until it broke. And then I fixed that one and then it worked again. But that's like a series about everyone has superheroes except for this one, like 20 something fuck up. And that one was fun because I feel like I fucked my life up. So I liked watching it more than I liked watching the first season. The first season I watched it and I was like, this is a terrible character. I hate her. It's so annoying watching her. And then I think maybe I've become that character. And so now it's more palatable. And so maybe there is some internal work I need to do. And then again, I can't get back into Elementary, so I've been rewatching Only Murders in the Building to try to get some murder back into my life, just to get to a healthy level. I watched like 3 episodes of the new Mandalorian season, not like new, it's been out for a while. And that was fine. Mandalorian is not my favorite show. It's kind of like a big like there's barely an overarching goal, but we go on all these little quests just basically to watch Baby Yoda eat and throw up, and that's about it. Um, and I saw the Revolutionary War 4D experience um, at Mount Vernon, where whenever there's a cannon, they rumble your seat and there's a flash of light. And when we cross the Delaware, there's fake snow. Um, so that was fine. And then I watched Taylor Swift The Eras tour, um, or part of it. I don't know. I was having a moment, so I didn't watch most of it. And I mostly did an online puzzle. Um, so yeah,
Nice.
it's not, but thank you.
Well, was the puzzle good?
Fine.
What's an online puzzle? Like you click and drag like actual
Yeah,
puzzle
it's like a
pieces?
jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, that's fun.
It's not,
Alrighty.
but thank you.
Okay, it's not fun apparently. All right. Well, any final thoughts on Poor Things or anything else?
I don't think so. What about you?
I don't think so. Where can they find you, Marriya?
They can find me here. And at Marriya Schwarz on all social media and the podcast at Remake Hot Take on TikTok for now and other areas. And I'm slow on social media right now, and I'm sorry, and we're trying. And yeah. What about you, Brooke? Can they find you anywhere?
They can request to follow me
By
on
invitation only. If you're on the list, if you're not on the list, trust me, you know.
you will not get to see my Instagram, but if you do want to follow me there, it's B_Reese Cup.
Mhm.
All
And this
right.
weekend we
Oh yeah.
we have a film screening in Williamsburg. If you live there and are listening to this, and vote for us, please, because at least 1/3 of us, me, has low self-esteem.
Marriya needs it. So hit those likes or whatever they are for the screening. But yes, we participated in a 24-hour film challenge that um is going to star my two pet bunnies, Bagel
That
and
you can't
Parsley.
see unless you have requested an Instagram or Twitter follow.
Yeah, you won't know who those are unless you're part of the inner crowd. But yeah, check out our film screening in Williamsburg, Virginia this
Not New
weekend.
York.
Yeah, I thought for a second some people think it's Williamsburg, New York, but it's less cool than that.
Mhm.
All right. Bye.
Bye.